Isaac's son Jacob, fleeing his brother's wrath, that's another story for another day, is traveling to the land of his ancestors to find a wife. He stops to camp for the night, and during his lonely campout, he has a dream. God appears to him and makes the same promises to Jacob as he did to Abraham and Isaac. In this powerful divine encounter, the promises God made to his father and grandfather become personal. Jacob is to have countless descendants. Jacob is to possess the promised land. Jacob is the one through whom the whole world will be blessed. Jacob understands how special this dream is, and thus how special this place is, and so he names it Bethel, house of God. Jacob, a young man full of life, has powerfully encountered God. Jacob has ascended to the mountain peaks of spiritual experience. He can feel God's presence. He can feel the power of God at work. He can feel God's promises coming true. He, almost at Bethel, the house of God, is home. But then he arrives at the homeland of his ancestors, and life becomes difficult. He lives in this land when all is said and done for 20 years, working hard in the service of his uncle in order to acquire 2 wives and flocks of goats. He only wanted 1. Wives, that is. But again, that's another story for another day. His relationship with his uncle Laban is a complicated one, a relationship of deceiving and being deceived. Laban won the award for most deceptive, I think. Anyways, Jacob said of those years, "The heat consumed me in the daytime, and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes." I can almost guarantee there were times during those long, hard, difficult years when God's promises felt far, far away. There were times when Jacob may very well have thought, is God going to bring his promises to reality? Was the dream I had at Bethel real? I probably just had too much wine to drink that night, trying to forget that my brother, understandably, wants to kill me. Are the promises real? Because it has been 20 years, and I don't see them happening. I don't feel them happening. I don't feel God's presence at all. But Jacob, like his father and grandfather before him, didn't lose hope in God's promises, and he was rewarded with another powerful, personal encounter with God. When Jacob returned inside the borders of the Promised Land, God appeared to him, and Jacob physically and spiritually wrestled with God. Jacob wrestled with God until he was blessed by God. Much later in his life, residing in Egypt, yet another story for another day, Jacob described his life to the Pharaoh as follows: "The years of my pilgrimage are 130. My years have been few and difficult." Difficult? Jacob's life had indeed been difficult. But when Jacob died at 147 years old, he died with hope. As his death approached, Jacob asked one of his sons for an important favor. "Do not bury me in Egypt, but when I rest with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried." And on his deathbed, he instructed all his sons, "Bury me with my fathers in the cave, in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought as a burial place." Jacob didn't want buried in Egypt. He wanted buried in the Promised Land. He had faith that his descendants would one day possess that land, as God had promised. Jacob died still trusting that the promises of God would come true. Do we hold on to our faith in God's promises, even when they seem far, far away? Do we trust in God's promises, even when we can't feel God's presence? Do we believe God's promises will come true, even when it has been 20 years since we had a powerful encounter with Him? Do we live, and will we die, abiding in the hope that God will bring us home? Abiding in the hope that God will bring us into a better country, a heavenly one. Jacob did. His father did. His grandfather did. Will we?